Yeah, long
Hello,
time no see.
hello.
Exactly, yeah, long time no see. It's been like 5 hours. I'll just give it another minute to get people in, and then we can start. If you guys can tap into the chat box, just type in the chat box. What's the thing that you are looking the most towards in this session tonight? What are the thing that you're looking towards learning, understanding, getting rid of from the session tonight? Let's do that. We'll fill up another minute and then we'll make a start. You're not looking towards anything? Or you're typing too slow? Which one is it? Typing too slow? How to notice when being close to burnout? That's a good one. That's a good one. Am I burnt out? Oh, well, je ne sais pas, but we're going to figure out. Welcome onto tonight's call, everyone. We have got a very what's it called, popular topic. I was going to say sexy topic. I'm not quite sure it is sexy, but it is definitely popular in the realms of being a doctor, being in a healthcare world. So if you are asking those questions of am I burnout, how do I notice it, or how do I recover from it, then you are definitely in the right place. And we couldn't have found a better speaker to come and talk to us tonight about how you tackle burnout, and especially around, like, changing in career success. So without further ado, I will introduce you to our speaker, Dr. Amy Jo Farrow, who's an occupational physician by background, but then turned into burnout coach, helping exhausted doctors with their burnout. But I'll leave it to you, Amy, to give us the full whack of your introduction.
Hello, it's really nice to meet you all. Thank you for coming this evening. I've got a presentation to show you, so I'll just share my screen now. When I'm sharing screen, I won't be able to see any comments in the chat or anything, any questions. So I know Ola's going to keep me up to date if there's anything that anyone wants to say. So I'll share my screen. So are you able to see that? Okay, good. Okay. So we're here to talk about tackling burnout for career change success. So the agenda today is to talk about what burnout is, the signs and symptoms of burnout, and actually I have an exercise where there's a quiz that you can do for yourself to work out whether you are high, moderate, or low risk from burnout based on your answers to those questions. So sort of interactive quiz that you can do. Following that, we'll be looking at the sort of consequences of burnout and the Society of Occupational Medicine's recommendations for how to manage it. I'll go through some of the techniques that my clients have used and the evidence-based recovery from burnout tips. And then we'll have an opportunity for you to actually come away with your own personalised, tailored plan for how you could address any of those symptoms in yourself. So I'll do that with something that's called a silent coaching exercise. So if you don't have a pen and a notepad with you, try and get that in the next sort of half an hour or so, because we'll be doing that exercise together. We'll have opportunity after that for a discussion about anything that you want to talk about. And And yeah, so we'll have a little bit of time for a chat at the end, but if you want to ask any questions as we go along, feel free to interrupt me. So burnout is defined by the World Health Organization and ICD-11 as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed. It's a triad of symptoms, including feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job or feeling negative towards it, and reduced professional efficacy. In the definition the World Health Organization puts out, it specifically relates to phenomena in the occupational context and shouldn't be applied to other areas of life. But I'm sure, as you can appreciate, you can be doing the same job as another individual, be under the same level of stress and pressure. You may have even done the same job for many, many years yourself. But if you consider there might be some personal factors, some family factors, some stress outside of work, other things that contribute that make your risk of burnout much higher. So I appreciate the World Health Organization has to be quite specific about their definition of burnout as a work-related condition, but we need to look at it in the bigger context of people's lives. So here's the opportunity for you to do the questionnaire. If you're able to do it on your phone with a QR code, or I can type the address into the chat here as well, if you'd like to do that. Once you've had a chance to do the quiz and it's completed, if you could just put your hand up or give me a thumbs up or something, then I'll know that most of us are done, and then we can move forward.
I finished it. Thank you, Amy, for sharing this one. But as I was going through it, it was going in my mind because I know a few people, like, for example, they're not practicing clinically, but they can obviously take that into context of their colleagues. And if they are doing more than one role, like a portfolio career, then again, they can either do it once for one role, I suppose.
Yeah, you could do. I think I've tried to put it so it's like patients or clients, or to try and help to make it applicable to more people. But obviously, you could make that colleagues.
Yeah.
You could make that
Husband.
employee. Yeah, yeah. So it's a bit.
He's wonderful. He's wonderful. I'm just joking.
So I'm happy to pause there for a minute if anyone wants to sort of, if anyone has any comments about their result there. Is anyone surprised at the outcome?
Très bien, Alia, très bien. I don't know why my French is coming out as you're moving out of Paris, but there you go.
Non, mais tu parles très bien, tu parles super bien, donc c'est bon.
Mais oui.
Well, that's good to hear that your level of burnout or the risk of burnout is low. You were wondering earlier if you were burnt out or not. So I think that's probably your answer. That you may still have some signs and symptoms that suggest that you're maybe on the first part of the stress curve or on your way up. But all of the advice today is applicable to help prevent you from burning out, and no matter what you're doing. So I don't think it's a waste of time you being here, even if you're not high risk.
I also got low-level burnout, but I was reflecting as to what my answers would have been when I was working as a registrar within obstetrics and gynecology, because I've left and I'm now working within femtech. And I was like, yeah, my answers would have been completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, same with me. I mean, I actually restarted it and answered it in terms of, the context of working when I was working, my in my previous role. And it's like almost night and day. So I was like, okay, do I talk about now? Do I talk about back then? So I decided to just do it back then. And of course it says high risk of burnout. So
Yeah.
which I do.
I was laughing at my answer because it says high level risk, and I'm thinking I'm like 10% as bad as what I was about 6 months ago. So I dread to think I think I probably was in burnout 6 months ago. So I've now come down a notch into high level, I suppose.
Yeah. And the important thing, I guess, to recognise in that state is that you have been really burnt out. Things weren't very good. Things getting better, and you could be on that post-traumatic burnout recovery part of the curve where you've been there, and now the important thing to do is get that gradual recovery going and look at the things that you can put into place to reduce the risk of it persisting or recurring. Because what some of you might find is that when you were working in your highly stressed medical roles, or and that actually you were really burnt out then, some of the things that lead to our burnout in the first place are personality factors, or are things that perhaps unhelpful habits that we might have and not looking after ourselves. And then we find ourselves really engaged in another job, another occupation, changing careers, and we think, great, haven't got the pressure of the NHS anymore, haven't got the pressure of on-calls and all that stress. But the thing that drove us in the first place to seek a career in medicine is that we're, probably perfectionist type A, high achievers. And so you can burn out even if there aren't people going to die as a result of the decisions that you make. So I think it's definitely worth addressing, especially if you're in a good place. Put those things in early, and if you're not in such a good place, you can start working on those things, bringing those things in gradually. So yeah, I think it's quite a useful exercise to reflect on how things have been. Okay, so I'll share my screen again. Okay, so thinking about the signs and symptoms of burnout. So that questionnaire before was about your risk of burnout. And it might be low because of the role that you're doing and the pressures that you're not feeling too pressured at the moment. But sometimes some of the signs and symptoms occur before you notice that there's a lot of stress at work. So it sometimes can be easier to spot in your colleagues when you're looking at things like attitude or behaviour changes, intolerance, impatience, emotional outbursts, anger or irritability in an otherwise, quite a placid member of your team, feeling quite negative or disengaged, being uncooperative, feeling, sort of compassion fatigue, lacking empathy, or colleagues who were previously quite sociable, used to go out and do things, used to join in with the team, sort of distancing themselves, or finding that there's performance issues, not paying attention, focusing or concentrating, being disruptive during meetings. And then perhaps more obvious things like absenteeism, physical complaints, headaches, neck pain, back pain, and recurrent viral illnesses. These can all be signs that experiencing burnout. So the GMC National Training Survey showed that doctors who have high levels of burnout are 45 to 63% more likely to make a major medical error, which is quite terrifying, really, considering that about 60% of doctors would fall into moderate to high risk burnout category. So this is an article released by the Society of Occupational Medicine, looking at risk factors and solutions for burnout in healthcare. They very sensibly set out organisational changes that need to take place and to reduce the risk of burnout. But as we know, large organisations, change happens at a glacial pace. Departmental measures, which can be a little bit easier to implement sometimes, and they go into a lot of detail in that article if you're interested. But then they also spend a bit of time talking about the individual interventions, so the personal risk factors and the things that individuals can do to modify their own risk in the face of lack of organisational change and departmental measures. But they did suggest that that won't help you recover in the face of unmanageable workplace stress. So I thought I'd spend a little bit of time talking now about the tools and techniques that my clients have used to help to recover from burnout. And again, implementing these into your life when you're not burnt out will help to keep you more robust against the risk of that. So as we've just done now, we've identified the likely state of burnout that we might have, looked at the contributing factors, sort of not blaming everything on work and the workplace, looking at what are the factors within my control, the things that I have influence over that could have changed the situation. Scheduled rest, so prioritise rest as a productive activity as much as anything else. Sandra Dalton Smith has a great TED talk on 7 types of rest. They're sort of emotional rest, cognitive rest, sensory rest. There's 7 of them, and gives examples of all different types of rest that would fall under those categories. Because if you don't really think about it, you can say, well, rest is sitting down, reading a book, watching TV, having a sleep, things like that. But lots of people don't consider things like spiritual rest, social rest, and actually a lot of the rest that she talks about are quite active processes. They're not turning off, do nothing, that's it, you're in rest mode. It's almost like rest is used as a restorative activity. It's an activity, but the importance here is that rest is not like, oh, I'll do that when I'm done. When everything's done, that never-ending to-do list, I'll have a rest. So this is about putting that in, and I think for a lot of people, perhaps in your positions, being self-employed or moving into portfolio career, you have lots of conflicts on your time, and it's very easy to take one project, the next exciting thing that comes along, and you can look at your diary and manage your time, but it's quite important to look at your diary and think about managing your energy. So if you've done something really busy, had a really big project coming up, try and give yourself that time to recover from it before taking on something else big. So I heard this first, I think, with Rachel Morris on the You Are Not a Frog podcast. She did a workshop about practicing your no, setting boundaries, and I really like this as an example of how to justify almost to yourself why you are doing something that perhaps you feel uncomfortable about, even though it's good for you. So thinking about what's the impact of saying yes to something you don't really want to do, you don't really have to do, and preparing for the pushback that you'll get from yourself or from others. So, for example, you could say, I choose to leave at 6:30, so that I can put my children to bed, spend some time with my partner, even if it means somebody's not going to be very happy about that, or I'm going to have to leave something to the next day, or I'm going to have to hand something over to the night team, the day team, etc. It's thinking not only what your boundary is or what you're choosing to do, but why you're doing it, and also what the consequences are going to be immediately, and then also in the longer term, because if you don't do it, what's the impact of that? And I think setting boundaries and enforcing those boundaries, or upholding those boundaries, I should say, is one of the hardest things for us to do as medics, ex-medics, people who really want to do a good job and are very capable. This is one of the things that came out of some recent research that Nick Petrie and his team are doing about people who are in high risk, high stress, high demand roles, but are actually low risk from burnout, like some of you here today. One of the things that they found was really helpful was to define the end of the workday. So have a kind of a ritual, a close down routine. Use do not disturb and timeout functions on the devices. So, make the most of that software that you have on your phone and your computer, because there's such an overlap these days with our technology that we're using for our work and also for our leisure. So trying to put a barrier there between finishing your work and beginning your leisure time, if that's still on a device. And that mental close down routine is like equivalent to like the commute home. Because for many of you working in tech or working in industry, you may be working from home. And so it's just tempting to continue and let that eat into your evening, or not quite feel like you've finished for the day. So having that routine can be quite helpful. So a lot of people who are feeling burnt out or have burnt out, it's been a long time coming that they haven't been doing the things that they love to do. They've prioritized work over pretty much everything else, and so they're lacking that creativity and inspiration in their life. So actually, loss of creativity is one of the one of those hallmarks of burnout. People who are burnt out, they actually can't really see a way through it. They're not sure what they need to do to change. I can't imagine an alternate reality other than quitting. And so, they become really stuck in where they are. And so keep that creative element into your working day, into your leisure time, will really help with that, cross brain thinking, and protect you from burnout. People who are burnt out often neglect their social calendar. They're not seeing their friends, seeing people in person, and just having those little interactions can be extremely helpful to center ourselves and rebalance ourselves. And so again, if you might realize you haven't seen your friends for 6 months. It's been such a long time, and you get together and it's great. But then if you don't put another date in the diary soon, that just time goes again, and you've missed it. And it's been a year the next time. So time outside, time in nature, it's just so good for the soul. And getting, as you're all aware, I'm sure, but getting natural light in your eyes early in the morning is so good for setting and augmenting your circadian rhythm to help you with sleep later on. Lots of people who are burnt out are experiencing symptoms of anxiety and depression type symptoms, and sleep disturbance is a major feature of those as well. So what I would recommend is trying to optimize sleep, and getting outside is a great way to help with that. We've already talked a little bit about intentional disconnection, but one of the things that can be quite helpful is actually to set a an alarm clock for sort of 15 minutes before the end of your working day, so that actually when that goes off, you know that you're just wrapping up the last little bits and then you're closing down. Because if you just suddenly go, oh gosh, it's 20 past 6 and I was meant to stop at 6 and I didn't really realize the time. It's using our tech to help us not use our tech. Sometimes the problem comes up with a solution. So again, in switching off, resting, recuperating, relaxing activities, mindful activities, checking in with ourselves is really helpful. So I like to go to the gym, and I like to stretch after going to the gym. And I do the same, pretty much a similar gym routine, but very exactly the same stretching routine every time. And the reason I do that is because then I can compare how I am from session to session. You know, is this a bit tight? Am I a bit, tense there? Is my neck a bit more sore doing that position? And that's a real mindful way of connecting with myself and going, oh, actually, do you know what? I'm not quite as good as normal at the moment. And it's that physical check-in that is really helpful. So we've probably all heard of this wonderful flow state, where you're so engrossed in an activity that is just challenging enough to keep you engaged and focused on the activity, but not so hard that you're not enjoying it at all. It's the flow states where you are time just seems to pass really, really quickly because you're so busy in what you're doing, and actually life goes on around you, not really noticing it. Now, some people get flow state from their work when they're being creative and they're writing reports or something like that, but other people need have more sort of creative pursuits or sport or learning a new skill. Instruments are particularly good for people who are wanting to get into flow state, and that engaging in flow state regularly again engages the creative part of our brains and is really, really protective for burnout. So I talked earlier about optimizing sleep. So having, again, like a ritual at the end of the day, having a nightly wind down in the last hour before bed, doing simple things like cutting out caffeine after midday, and really putting the effort into getting 7 or 8 hours sleep a night. Now, for those people who are still working, as A&E registrars and or obs and gynae consultants and trainees, and you're probably all over the place with your sleep and your shift patterns, and it's really sort of a recipe for burning out for lots of people. But if that's not your reality, then there's nothing we can do that's probably more effective to look after our mental health and our well-being than getting sufficient sleep. And I don't need to tell you too much about getting some exercise, preferably outside, on a regular basis, and eating nutritious food. Now, for me, eating nutritious food doesn't happen by accident. If it's left up to me and I'm hungry, I want the quickest, the easiest thing that's there. So it does require a bit of planning and making healthy food the only or default option, and that's readily available. So we all know as doctors what we're meant to do to look after ourselves and stay well, but sometimes we all need it pointed out to us at times. And then looking at who are you, and what is really, really important to you, not just in your work, but in your life. What do you want to achieve? Who do you want to be, and how do you want to? What are your values? What do you really, really care about? And there are lots of assessments out there. I think it's QIA, VIA, sorry. VIA is one of the online tools that you can use to do a questionnaire, and it helps you come up with a suggested list of your top values. Things like kindness, hope, compassion, humor, things like that. So it's a really good tool to work out how to define what's important to you, what are your values, and then try and work out what in your life is conflicting with that value, what's stopping you from achieving that value, but also what could you add in. Sometimes when we're burnt out, we think, oh, I've just got to get rid of stuff, I've got to do less stuff, I've got too much stuff to do, I can't possibly do anything else. But sometimes when you do something that lights you up, that really nourishes you, gives you some, meets one of those values really, really well, that can boost the other areas of your life, and help to kind of bolster you against the things that try and push you off course, keep you more steady, because you've got that thing that really, really nourishes you. And then try and make changes, like some of the things that we've talked about, for long-term health and happiness. Because that's what we really want here. So it's not just recovering from burnout, but it's about making sure that that doesn't keep happening over and over again. So I'd really like to invite you now to take part in a coaching exercise. If you've got a pen and a notepad, what I'm going to do is I'll read some questions. You answer your questions, take as long as you like to answer those. I'm not going to ask you to tell me your plan or what you've written down. I'm only going to ask you a score at the end. You feel free to share whatever you like, but I'd really like to give you an opportunity to be introduced to the power of coaching if you haven't had it before. And this exercise will sort of give you a plan to move forward, maybe a first step. Okay. So we've got about 15 minutes now. What would you like to give some thought to today?
Do you want us to write that down, Amy? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, just on your own notepad. Yeah, what would you like to give some thought to today? What would you like to have by the end of this exercise? What would it mean to have that by the end? What's the current situation relating to that? How are you feeling about the situation? What have you already tried to address that situation? What would you like to have happen? Now imagine you've successfully addressed this issue. What does success look like? What does success feel like? What options do you have? What other options do you have? What else could you try? Looking over your list of options, which one are you most likely to pursue? For the option you've chosen, how will you take this forward? What help or support would it be good to have? What's the first step you could take? So I'm not going to ask you to share your plan, share your first step, share your thoughts on that if you don't want to. But I will ask if anyone has an action point and come up with a plan of something that they might do. And if you have an action step, on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is definitely going to do it, absolutely nothing stopping me, and 1 being, yeah, there's no chance I'm going to do that. How likely is it that you'll move forward with this? You pop them in the chat if you like. Okay, great. Got a 10. 8. Great. 10. Wonderful. 10. 9. Brilliant. So that, come up with something that is personal to you, that is, taking your life circumstances into consideration, and you've come up with a plan. So those of you that are 8, 9, 10, I'd say absolutely go for it. There's nothing stopping you. You know, you can move forward with this straight away. And you know, people sort of 7, 6, 5, I invite you to give some thinking to what's getting in your way. What is that obstacle that you need to overcome before you'd be able to move forward with that plan? All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'll stop sharing, and I'm very happy to open the floor up to any discussion or questions. Feel free to ask or say anything. You don't have to be polite and wait your turn. Just any feedback.
I think this is a really, these series of questions are really good in terms of getting you to think through, how you feel about what you have to do. What is it making you, what are the things that are keeping you from doing them, and how you can, move on from that just bit by bit, probably in ways that you wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah, I think for people who've never had any coaching before or learnt about coaching, it is, when you have some experience of it, you realize how powerful it is, somebody just asking you that question. We've all done reflective exercises before. We've all written down thoughts on something, but unless you've got somebody there right in front of you specifically requiring you to give an answer or write an answer down, it's very easy to let yourself off the hook, isn't it, with thinking something through and thinking to the end of your thoughts and not being distracted. So thank you for that. I agree, it's really powerful exercise. Yeah. Did anyone come up with something that they were sort of surprised that, because sometimes we do these exercises and people hadn't realized that there was a block, or hadn't realized there was something that they were needing to do or hadn't started yet, because it can be surprising sometimes what you come up with. Or if anyone has any questions about burnout and recovery, feel free to jump in.
I certainly sorry. I certainly found there's a lot of good ideas there that I've been through coaching before, and I had put a lot of those sort of things in place, and then they've gone by the wayside, which sort of might explain how I'm feeling at the moment. So it's good to be reminded of those things, put things in the diary, go to bed early, that sort of thing. Really, really simple stuff. And it's so easy to forget it. And then it just gets out of control again. So yeah, I found that really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think one of the things that my coaching clients find helpful is all of that advice is available online. I haven't come up with anything groundbreaking or different to anything that's available out there. In fact, a lot of things are well recognized as helpful. But having when you work with a coach and you sort of do this sort of exercise like we've just done, and you have a course of that, so you see them over an extended period of time, although your coach shouldn't hold you accountable and tell you off if you haven't done what you said you were going to do, because it's up to you really, and you don't always have the chance to make those changes, and it's not a have you achieved it or haven't you achieved it, but by having that regular check-in with somebody, it can keep it in the forefront of your mind, the importance of putting those habits in place. And none of those things are particularly difficult, but it's the routine, isn't it? It's the habit. It's making them effortless, habit stacking them onto other things, and making them more appealing than the alternative, and all those kinds of things. But it's very easy to let them slide, and none of us are perfect, and I'm sure even the self-help gurus out there sometimes forget.
Thank you, Amy, for that. I mean, like I found with the exercise, even I'm thinking about it, even if you don't have burnout or going towards burnout, like just if you have something on your mind, it's a really useful set of questions just to go through, getting it off your head, getting out of your mind, like, getting on a piece of paper. And like you said, thinking it through properly to the end and having a conclusion and then just going with it, because otherwise you can just end up with something just playing on your mind for so long, and then that exhausts you in itself. And just to kind of like comment on the back of what Gordon was saying in regards of like, having those time boundaries, I found it really as well for me. Like I came out from a very structured job in the NHS and into working for myself pretty much. And you tend to fall on your face a bit, I have to be honest. Because you came from a very structured place to kind of like having absolutely now no time boundaries, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but it's kind of like it seeps in. And working from home as well is the other thing, because where is the boundary of work and where's the boundary of rest, and where is I'm doing this because I really like it versus I'm not doing it because I need to have a rest. And it's a bit of a difficult landscape at the beginning to navigate unless you're organized, I suppose, with your time, and you say like not doing it now, or not this day, or this is scheduled downtime for me, etc.
Yeah, so important.
Something I was going to ask was, somebody who's gone through burnout and they're in recovery, at what point would you be able to say, I guess part from the question, but would you be able to say, okay, I've recovered from burnout now, I'm no longer in that. I don't know if the questionnaire is something that you do, or, there are other signs or things that you can just kind of say, hey, I'm not in burnout.
Yeah, so it's a continuum. It's a continuum. And some people who are perhaps not burnt out may still have some of those habits or personality traits and things that might be considered to be on the burnout spectrum. So I think it's looking at, are you if you're no longer feeling tired all the time and energy depleted, are you no longer feeling negative or cynical towards your work? And when you are working, are you working effectively? It's the opposite of the World Health Organization's definition of burnout. Are those three things going okay? And then if the answer to that is yeah, then I think you're probably safe at that point from burnout. Now, those things fluctuate. Sometimes we're less productive, sometimes we're more tired, sometimes we're feeling just wrung out from work and a bit negative. But if those feelings don't persist and you recover from them quickly, then you're not in that burnout phase. As I said earlier, it's important to look at the things that lead to our burnout in the first place, and it's not always just work. And so looking at what are the things within my control, in my environment, in my life, that I can put into place to stop that from happening again. And that post traumatic growth or post burnout growth that comes out of that reflection.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your talk. You've got such a calming voice. I feel very relaxed. So yeah, thank you. I was, I think, quite similarly to Ola. So I'm now self-employed and plan my own days. And when this first happened, I was like, right, I have all these tasks, and I wasn't planning my day. I was just like, I'll just kind of do things and try and remember them. And so I've tried to I've got a daily planner and a weekly planner now, which I found really, really helpful. And I've just thought, right, I kind of plan it at the weekend, and then just kind of stick to it ish. But I was like, right, before I go to bed, as part of my routine, I need to look at what I'm doing for the next day. And I think I'll find that really, really helpful. And one thing that came to mind during your talk was, I can remember when I was working in obstetrics and gynecology, I was talking to one of my friends, and I was like, I just can't be bothered to go to work. I just can't be bothered. And she was like, oh, that's a bit concerning. And I didn't recognize that as concerning at the time. I thought everyone couldn't be bothered to go to work and it was normal. So yeah, I just kind of remembered that. So I thought I would share it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's we don't always know, we don't always see it in ourselves that we're burnt out. It sometimes takes somebody else pointing out to us, actually that's not normal, you know, not everyone feels that way. But we're so kind of indoctrinated in medicine, we're sort of drinking the Kool-Aid that everyone feels that way, that we're all you know, it's gallows humor, or I've probably got worse renal failure than the patient in bed 5 because I haven't had a wee and I haven't had a drink all shift. You know, we're so used to using ourselves up in that way, and it's really sad. I get the calm voice thing a lot. I'm not entirely sure whether that's a good thing when you're presenting, because okay, good, because I so don't want to put people to sleep. But the calm voice thing probably came in handy with getting a rapport with people that I was about to anaesthetize, because that was my my NHS life was as an anaesthetist. So perhaps that came in handy, and perhaps I'll take up hypnotherapy. Yeah, well, it'll be a good complementary skill for burnout recovery, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah, thank you for that. Does
Can I
anyone?
ask one more question about adding things in?
Hmm.
This feels really hard to do when you feel quite pressed for time, you know, and you know it's not just work, it's the work-life balance and family and all of that lot. So I think I know the answer, but I'd just like to hear it from you about what your advice is about adding things in order to help yourself feel better.
Hmm. So I think it can feel overwhelming to think I've got to do something else to add to my life. Um, but when we're feeling low, when we're feeling rubbish, we don't have we don't feel like we've got the energy to do anything else. Not just the time, but just don't have the energy for it. But if you're doing something, or you know, you're looking forward to doing something that brings you joy, that gives you energy and picks you up to do that thing. So I think we feel like we don't have time. Um, and sometimes, you know, I actually get people to bring out their diary, you know, what are you doing? And how much time are you spending on social media or doing tasks that don't actually need to be done? Or what are you doing with your time to fill your time instead of doing something that is meaningful? Because we all have time sink activities that we do that perhaps don't really need that much time, or could be outsourced, or could wait, because we have a never-ending to-do list as parents, as doctors, as you know, whatever role that we have. So that's what we tend to do, look from a practical perspective, where can this fit in? And then when people look forward to it, it gives them the energy to do it. Is that what your thinking was on that as well?
Yeah. No, it's just nice hearing it again, and I think you're right. There is a lot of wasted time, I think, in the day. You know, you're sort of scrolling on your phone, and it's not a waste of time doing that, and or even watching telly where you think that that is relaxing you. As you said, there's actually other active stuff you can do that might actually energize you more. So, yeah, no, I agree. It's good hearing that again.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Like, I find it, the more that I schedule time for the gym, the more I actually have energy to do the other things. And somehow I miraculously find to still like manage to fit everything else. But if I didn't schedule the gym, then I wouldn't have got around to the gym. If that
Yeah.
makes sense. But if I do, I'll find a way to do everything else around it and still go to the gym. And I was like, where did that time come from? But it's just like the proactive planning.
Mm. Yeah, and for some people, you know, there's those keystone habits like going to the gym, or you know, time restricted eating, or whatever it is that they have as their I'm on it with in my life, those things. And then once you have that, it's easier to build off. And for me, if I've got a day where I've got to get something done and I've only got that day to get it done, I go to the gym first, because if I say to myself I'll do it when I'm done, I'm never done. So a little bit like your question earlier, it's that put it first, put that thing that you want to do and you love to do first, and everything else will fit in around it in in accordance with is it Parkinson's law, where however long you have allocated to get something done, it will take that amount of time. So if you have a whole day to get it done, it'll take a whole day. If you chop off this amount because you've been to the gym, it'll still take this amount of time, generally. And so I think that, you know, that's a really good point, is put it first. You know, we put things in our diary, like meetings, appointments and reminders and stuff. That's what we schedule, you know, when we're looking at our timetable. But what does it say about what we value if we don't feature in our own diary? If we don't feature as a line item of, you know, do this self-care activity here, have a rest there, you know, you just keep going and going and going. And when you don't have anyone saying this is your start and finish time and these are your patients that you've got to see, and you've got to see them within this time, it's very tempting, especially if you're self-employed or you've got a portfolio career, to just fill every minute with a job. Sorry, my lights just come crashing down. There we go. And not look after ourselves. Oh, I hope that doesn't come crashing down again. There we go. Try that.
I know for myself, I've always liked to finish all my tasks first so that I can relax and enjoy it without having to think that, you know, I have something else to do. But what would end up happening is that I'd just be stuck with all the things I have to do. So by the time I'm done, I'm just spent. But I'd always have it in mind that, no, I'm going to finish everything first so it's all done. And I just pretty much wore myself out doing that.
I'm reading a really good book, or I've read it and rereading a really good book at the moment, 4,000 Weeks, Oliver Berkman, who talks
That's
about...
a good one.
Yeah, so if you live till you're 80, you get about 4,000 weeks of life. And he was like, he used to write for I think it was the New Yorker, or maybe the Times, as like a productivity expert. He was like hack guy, how to fit in as much as you can in productivity terms. And what he realized that the more productive you got, the more jobs you got, the more work you had to do. And the to-do list just gets longer and longer and longer. And you feel like you're being more productive, but if you put it into some sort of matrix and come out the other end of the plan. But I think what he in the book and what he talks about is the fact that it's never done. And we have to kind of make peace with the fact that our to-do list is never ending. Our life to-do list is never ending. And to make sure that we're using our lives wisely and making space for the things that are most important, and not just resting to be productive. That's the other thing, like thinking I must rest in the most productive way possible so that I'm the most productive person after I've rested. Like, you know, it's quite a weird thing to think, but yeah, it's a really good book actually if you just want to be come off that roller coaster for a bit. 4,000 Weeks.
Any other questions, insights, thoughts, experiences you guys want to share or ask about?
One thing that I've just been thinking about, so I've gone from being a very burnt out and well obstetrics and gynecology registrar to taking a break and now starting a new career in medical advisory consultancy and femtech, which is great and it's going well. And the past couple of days I've been at a conference and the product I've been helping make was launched yesterday. And I've posted about that on LinkedIn and it's got quite a lot of really, really good feedback, which I'm feeling positive about. But after that, I've had a lot of messages, a lot of people wanting to connect with me, which is all amazing. I'm really happy about, but I'm just trying to tackle it in a calm way. And I've written, I do not need to reply immediately because I have this thing where I'm like, right, I need to reply. I've got a message I need to reply. I've like turned off the notifications because I'm like, I don't need to know about a LinkedIn notification immediately. So just if you had any tips with that, because I feel like I'm in a very good place at the moment, but I don't want to reach a tipping point where I begin to feel overwhelmed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. When I first went on LinkedIn, I had a similar thing. Like I thought, post every day, post at the peak times, make sure I put a comment here, and I comment on people's messages or post for 15 minutes before I post my thing, and then I comment that, to engagement, all of that. And then you had people sending you messages and like, oh, I've got to be polite, got to engage in these conversations. And then I was like, this is going to be ironic if I burn out talking about burnout. Like, this is no good. So, and also I was posting on my non-working days where I have my little boys and get to do drop off and pick up at school and things, and it was distracting me from them. So I was like, don't tell my employer, but I was like, I'm only going to post and engage on LinkedIn on the days where I'm working anyway. So before work, before they pay me, there we are. Downtime's fine. And so I'm very intentional about when I go on LinkedIn. I have specific times of day and in the week where I do that, popping on here and there to answer a message or comment, in your free time kind of thing. But if you're feeling overwhelmed with the amount of responses, you could even say that, like, thank you ever so much for your message. I really appreciate that you've got in contact with me. This has had such a great response. I've had so many messages. I'm just taking my time to respond to people in a thoughtful way, or something like that. And then it tells people that you've read their message and that you value them and you're coming back to them. But then you don't feel that pressure to the immediate, that urgency trap that we get ourselves into. I think that can be helpful. And for me, sometimes I'll leave messages for a while in my DMs. And when I come back to message people, I might give a little apology for the delay, but I personally don't expect anyone to reply back to me quickly at all for something that isn't urgent. I don't. And I don't, most other people probably don't either. And if they do, well, that's unreasonable. So that's my feeling on it. Like, if they don't like it, well, we're not really a good fit anyway. But that's what I would be tempted to do, is a little holding message saying thank you ever so much, and I'll come back to you, and be very intentional when you want to be on there. I'm going to be on there for half an hour this morning or whatever, because you can get sucked down like a LinkedIn wormhole, can't you? And you get all those like dopamine high from people being in contact with you, and it's really exciting. But you don't want to spend a lot of time working on activities that are not going to add a lot to your business. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I've tried to, well, it's kind of all come out through this exercise, really, just say, like, when I'm planning, I planned my emails, but I hadn't planned, like previously, hadn't planned my LinkedIn time. So I've just kind of been toing and froing on it. So I'm just going to add it, I think, maybe to like scheduled times. And you're absolutely right. Like, when I don't expect people to reply to me immediately. So like, why am I being like, oh, I'll be at your beck and call, don't worry. But no, thank you.
Congratulations on the launch of the product and such a great response.
Thank you.
One more question. How would you deal with, okay, for me, every time I've tried to make a schedule or, just plan everything out, and somehow it doesn't quite go the way, of life, then it just seems to just throw everything off. And I just think, oh, I'm just not good at scheduling things. And it's just kind of, there's that level of frustration that just makes me think, oh, I can't do that. And then I go back to doing things like, I'll just do them when they come. And of course, that's the recipe for disaster. I don't know. I mean, I guess it seems like a no-brainer, just keep doing it, but that's the challenge that I have, not being able to follow my schedule.
I mean, I'm by no means like a productivity expert. That's not, where where I would say my strengths lie. But there are lots of tools out there for prioritization of tasks. Like the Eisenhower matrix. Have you heard of that? Where you look at what's important and urgent, what's important but not urgent. Yeah. So looking at from that perspective, making sure you schedule time for important but not urgent things, which is normally where the self-care, looking after ourselves, the CPD and education of ourselves comes in. And it's easy to just constantly be in the urgency trap. And you know, like you say, if you're just in a reactive state, then you're probably in the urgent and not important box, rather than getting on with that one big thing. A coach that I know, she has lots of opportunities, so many different distractions and things that you can be getting on with. She says she tends to set herself like a monthly goal. What do I want to have achieved by the end of this month? Like quite a big thing, but you know, and so then focusing on that one area at a time. Obviously, has the luxury of doing that as a coach. She can sort of focus on one area at a time. With that, I thought that was a really good plan. Like, what is my main focus for this time? And anything else that doesn't have to be done within that time is just a distraction. Doesn't need to be done at all.
I find it always best to kind of like have a set list of the things that I need to do on that particular day. And then there are other things that if I get around to them, then that's great. But if not, I'm not totally disappointed. So again, like a bit like the monthly goal. So I kind of like at the beginning of the month, sit and look at the end of it. I'll be like, what would make me proud? Come to the end of the month, I would have achieved. And it'll be like, okay, work it backward into days. So this is what I need to do every day in order to get that. So then that goes into my diary. My travel time goes into my diary. My gym time goes in the diary. Time with my husband goes into, like, you know, there are pockets there for it. And then every week, if I feel that there is some more space, I can put those things that are, you know, it would be good if I got them done. But then if the day ends and I've not got them done, then that's fine. They roll over and it doesn't matter. And at some point, I do like a to-do purge. Or like, those rolled over for so many times now. Clearly, I do not need to do them. And they get deleted. So it's just kind of like having a basic plan of like what's the key things for like your work and your well-being that you need to get done in a day. And anything else on top of it, it's good to have.
And you can spend a lot of time just quick, you know, a quick win kind of things. And then every quick win adds up to 3 or 4, 5 minutes or whatever. And then suddenly that's an hour that could have been spent on that bigger thing. So yeah, I think that's a really good tip, Ola. Yeah.
And it is practice. I find it's practice. And sometimes you kind of like, sometimes you're better at it, sometimes you're not. And God knows how many apps I've tried. It is a process. It is a process. You learn what you like to do, whether it's using your calendar or using an app or using a pen and paper or a to-do list. Like, test them out, see what feels good and what makes you feel good about it. But yeah, it's a process.
And work out, I guess, what the time sinks are. Like as well at work on my my occupational health role. When I get there in the morning, I read my consults, prepare my notes for speaking to the people, and I don't open my emails until lunchtime, because I know that if I open my emails first thing in the morning, I will spend 10-15 minutes dealing with somebody else's request, and that will have an impact on my day. So I've just noticed that's where I'm losing time. So I'm just like, right, I'm not doing it until here. So that's
That's a great tip. That's a really great tip. Yeah. Anything else, guys? We wrap up for the day. Yeah.
Well, what I'm going to pop in the chat. So a couple of things. So there's I'd be really grateful if you have the time to fill in a survey monkey feedback for me. It really makes a big difference. And I'll pop up on here now the screen for if you want to get in touch with me about coaching or anything that we've talked about today. You can, if you would like to have a free discovery call, you can book into my diary using the Calendly link just there, or send me an email. Very happy to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. It's where we tend to congregate these days, isn't it? Yeah. If no one else has any other questions. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Paula, for hosting and inviting me.
Thank you so much for coming onto this and sharing this with us. It's been like really, really insightful and really beautiful, and especially the exercise, the writing exercise that you shared. It's been very, very insightful, I would say, and I'm sure everybody has taken value from it. And you're going to be coming back with further sessions over the course of the year. And like everyone on here, you'll be able to see Amy on our coaches page as well. On the website, it will be going live next 24 hours, I think. So yeah, if you do want to reach out, certainly do through the page, through this link, or through LinkedIn, or drop us an email and we can put you in touch with Amy. So thank you everyone for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting this. Hope you have a great rest of your evening and week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.